recording this. Okay, welcome to Faith and Calm. This is class number 221. This next week is 222, but we're still at 221 at this week. We're in Ellul, and so we're still preparing for Rosh Hashana. I could talk a lot about Rosh Hashana. I could. Well, I didn't prepare for it to talk that way, so I'm not going to do that. We're going to talk. My topic is going to be about you should really acknowledge and what did I say? Not just acknowledge. You should acknowledge your own greatness and appreciate your own greatness. You should appreciate yourself. Not everybody is going to appreciate you all the time, and so if you're waiting for other people to appreciate you, it's going to be like the sound of one hand clapping. So, and you have, and God appreciates you. God knows what you're going through. God knows how much you're trying. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. In the last part, in Parsha last week, I'm always a week behind. Some people are always talking about the next week. I'm talking usually about what happened last week because I am still working on it. 2 days ago. Still connected with that. There was it was talked about the Parsha talk Kitetse when you go out to war, and one of the laws that it talks about is sort of inscrutable, or maybe not. It sounds obvious. Maybe it sounds obvious. I don't know. The law goes as follows: that if there's a man and he's married to 2 women, which was legal, still is legal today. Just Rabbeinu Gershon said we don't do it. And he put a 1,000-year ban on it, which they renewed. So we Ashkenazim do not do it. But if you could marry 2 women, and let's say, for example, one was loved and one wasn't loved, one was hated. It says the Shnua. Actually, it says hated. So the man loves one wife and he loves and hates the second wife. And then when he passes away and he has to give his inheritance, he can't favor the child he has to favor the firstborn. If the firstborn is born to the one that's hated, he can't pass over that firstborn and give it to the child of the woman who's loved. He has to give it always to the double portion has to be given to the firstborn child no matter what. I never thought of this, but maybe I should not reading carefully enough. But I listened to a class and asked the question. The question is as follows: you didn't have to say this whole business and story about one is loved and one is hated. You could have just said, no matter what, always give it to the firstborn.
A double portion.
A double portion. Give the double portion to the firstborn. That's what it should have said. Why do you have to say that he married 2 women and that one is hated and one is not hated? Just simply say, always give to the firstborn. Double. Okay. Mm-hmm. So Torah is not always understood. It is understood always on the simple level, and it never departs from the simple level. So that it is telling you that situation, but it's also trying to teach you something, and that's why it goes out of the way. It's what it's basically saying something on. Always the Rambam says the Torah speaks about the physical world, but it hints to things on the more spiritual world. And Rabbi, I think it was Rabbi David Azulay says it's not only that, Torah is always talking about spiritual, psychological, emotional level. That's where it's talking about, where it hits home, and it's hinting to it things that are just practical. So the lesson really is as follows. When we say that a person is married to 2 people, sometimes we're always in a relationship with God. The issue is, how do we view our relationship with God? Do we feel ourselves as the beloved? Because I am wonderful and I am fantastic and I'm doing everything I can and I'm really succeeding and life goes well and I'm inspired and I'm serving God the way I really wanted to and I'm doing my Ellul the way I wanted to and I'm really at the top of my groove and so forth. I'm a beloved child. I'm a beloved wife. And we're all the wives of Hashem. And that, or is it that I have some issues. I lose it sometimes. I'm not appreciative of God. I'm not appreciative of what I've got. I forgot that He was with me yesterday, and today it seems bad. Whatever, and therefore I feel I'm hated, and because I'm not worthy of it. So the Torah is saying the following: It's saying, it's not whether you. God knows who you are, and He knows that that some people's journeys through life are going to be more difficult. And through that process, and through that feeling more distant, you actually give birth to the firstborn child. You give birth to us to what God wanted, which is the firstborn child. And the firstborn child always gets double, meaning that God is going to give double to you because of what you had to go through, because of the challenges you had to go through, because of the difficulties you had to go through. It's actually more appreciated by God because you are the firstborn of Him, and He appreciates and He values and he sees what you go through, and He cares about you. So don't take your current situation in any way of whether there's an approval or disapproval of God. You are His firstborn. He wants to give to you double, and He's going to give to you double. And therefore, there's every reason to be happy with Him. And I thought I would tell a story. Maybe it'll help with this idea too, because I told the story last week, and people like the story. So I like this. I like the story, so I get to tell the story. This story?
Yeah.
Yeah, the story I told this Shabbos.
Okay.
But I didn't tell this story last week on class.
Okay, good.
It also has to do with something in the Parsha about losing something. And the story goes as follows. This was in the time of the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab was once traveling to another town. He had packed up all his belongings, put it in big trunks and suitcases, came to the train station. That's how you traveled in those days. He got the train, took him to the new place. And when they got up to the new train station, they couldn't find the trunk with all his manuscripts. They found everything else, but not that. Now, by Chabad Rebbeim, manuscripts was very, very precious. Now, what is a manuscript? Manuscript means it's not printed yet. It's handwritten. So handwritten ideas of Torah were very, very precious. There was a certain holiness because it was the actual handwriting of whoever it was. And the Rebbe Rashab spent a lot of time there, didn't want to leave. But eventually, after a few hours, they just didn't find it. So he said, we just have to go on back home. He kept the ticket, and they went back home. A few days later, a young chassid, his name was Avraham Eliyahu Gerari, came for Yechidus to talk to the Rebbe Rashab, and he explained to him his problem. His problem was that this wasn't the problem. The problem was he recently got married, and his wife came with a big dowry, 10,000 rubles, and he invested it stupidly, foolishly. He didn't. And he lost 9,000 of it. He only had 1,000 left. That's only part of the problem. The real problem was his wife was first upset with him, and now she's furious with him because she thinks that, she married a fool, and she lost my parents' money, and she wants a divorce. And he was crying to the Rebbe Rashab because she was really mad at him, and they just got married. Anyway, Rebbe Rashab listened to him, and then he said, here, Avraham Eliyahu, I have a mission for you. Take this ticket, go to the train station, and there you should pick up my trunk with the manuscripts in it. He didn't tell him that it had been lost or anything else like that. And just said, I have a mission for you. So Avraham Eliyahu was pleased to do something for the Rebbe Rashab. He took off right away. He didn't expect any reward. And he went to the train station. He figured this is actually a fairly easy task to do. He gets to the baggage room, though, and it's all locked up. So he sees it's not going to be quite as easy as he thought. It was the middle of the day. I don't know why. It's closed. And so he goes wandering around. He goes, and there's a restaurant that's open nearby. So he goes in there to sit down and have something to drink and to see what's going to be. While he's sitting there, a man comes over to him, and sits down and starts asking him questions. What are you doing here? Who are you? And so forth. And he didn't seem to be anybody dangerous, so he explained what the story was and so forth. And he shows him the ticket that he's looking for this baggage. And the guy says, actually, it's amazing that you picked me of all people to tell me the story because I am the manager of the baggage room. It happens to be lunch break right now. That's why nobody was there. And now it's over. And so we'll go back. And since I am the manager, I'll have my workers. They'll go find your bag, your trunk. And he puts him on the job, and they look up and down all over, and finally they find it hidden behind a bunch of other boxes or something like that. It was really out of the way, but they're able to find it. And Avram Eliyahu Gerari, he takes it back to the Rebbe Rashab. Rebbe Rashab is extremely pleased, and he says, Eli, I owe you one now, so I'm going to do a favor for you. I'll tell you what there was. There's this town called Kremsk. It's in Crimea on the Black Sea. And I want you to go there, and you will find what your business. You'll figure out what to do there. So again, there's a Chabad Chassid. He's used to these kind of cryptic directions. He goes, he travels, he comes to the Black Sea. He doesn't know what he's supposed to do there, but it's nice. It's the Black Sea. There's beaches, there's swimming. So he decides to go take a swim. Oh, I forgot the most important part. Before he left, as Avram Eliyahu Gerari, he went back to his wife, and he told his wife the story that he found the trunk, and she actually began to change her opinion of him already because she saw, hey, maybe he's not a good for nothing. He actually can do something for somebody. And so she decided that she would help him go to the Black Sea. So she packed his suitcase, and she also baked some very nice cakes for him and gave it to him to eat on the trip. So he took these cakes with him. So now we come back to the story. He's at the Black Sea. He just took a swim. He's feeling a little hungry. He sits down on the beach, and he starts eating these cakes. While he's sitting there, a man comes over to him and says, Shalom Aleichem, who are you? And by the way, are those cakes only for you, or can I have one also? So he says, fine, you can have one of these cakes. He gives him the cake, and the man, not the Avram Eliyahu, the other man, says, wow, these are really delicious cakes. This is really extraordinary. And he had told him the whole story of his wife and everything else. He says, a person who has a wife like this, who can make cakes like that, they should get back together again. I'm going to try and help you. So, you know what? I'll come back here tomorrow. Make sure that when you come, you bring those cakes with you. And so Avram Eliyahu goes and comes back the next day. And he comes back to the beach. He brings his wife's cakes. He shares it with the man. And this man had a friend. And the friend says, can I have the cakes too? Yeah. And he eats the cakes, and he says, these cakes are really delicious. This is the main part of the story. The cakes are really fantastic. I said, I got to do, I'm going to help you just because those are just such fantastic cakes. And, we got to bring this marriage back together again.
What am I going to buy for $200?
So
in the black skirt.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you mute?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So he says, here's what I'm going to do. I actually have a train car worth of cigarette papers, and I'll sell them to you at cost. 1,000 rubles, that's what you have, right? At 1,000 rubles, and you take them, and I would suggest you go to Kremenchug. That's where they have all the cigarette making factories, and there you'll be able to make a profit by selling the cigarette papers to the cigarette makers. Okay, so this is what the Rebbe told him. So therefore, he goes. He pays his 1,000 rubles. He takes the train car worth of cigarette papers. And less money, and he goes to Kremenchug, where the big factories for cigarette factories are. Now, when he gets there, he goes to see, now the Geraris were all business people. He actually had a cousin, his name was Tzvi Gerari. He goes right to him and he said, Tzvi, the Rebbe Rashab gave me this deal. I bought this train car of cigarette papers. I want to sell it. And maybe you can help me. You know the business around here. You can help me sell it. So he says, okay, yeah, I can get you 1,500 rubles for that. He says, 1,500? No way. I want 10,000, nothing less. And his cousin tells him, "It's not. You're never going to get 10,000. That's way out of line in this town, and so forth." He says, "No, no, no. The Rebbe told me 10,000. I'm going to make my 10,000." The Rebbe didn't tell you had to make it all at once. 10,000, nothing less. Okay, I'm no deal. So he goes to the different, puts up posters and different signs in the shuls and so forth in the town, saying that he has these cigarette papers on sale for 10,000 rubles. A couple days go by, nobody's buying, and then he goes to knock on the door, and there's a man there, and he says, "Do you still have those papers?" He says, "Yeah, I have them." He says, "How much you asking?" 10,000 ruble. He says, "Fine," and he gives him the money right on the spot. Why did he do that, this guy? It's because there happened to be a fire in the town the night before, and the warehouse where all the paper in the whole town was stored burnt down. So now there was no cigarette paper at all in all of Kremenchuk. So it was worth 10,000 rubles. So he was able to sell it for 10,000. So his cousin immediately hears about this. He gets him somewhere else. He goes to Krems, and he tries to see if he can get some more paper. And the guy tells him, I really didn't have any more. It was a one-time thing, and I just happened to sell it. I didn't have no idea what it was going to be worth. The punchline, the end line of the story is as follows. So Avram Eliyahu Gerari goes back to the Rebbe Rashab and thanks him very much. He says, "Thank you for restoring my marriage and for restoring the 10,000 rubles. My wife is now, is back together with me again. And I want to ask the Rebbe for some advice. Where should I invest these 10,000 rubles?" And the Rebbe says, "We're even now. The rest you have to do on your own. I'm not going to tell you how to get the money or any more money." And that's the end of the story. But there is a point to the story. What's the points of the story? The point of the story is very much an Ellul story too, and it's very much relevant for all of us. And that is the following. It says, sometimes we look and we look and we look and we're at wit's end and we don't know how to help ourselves. And it's not that we're not here necessarily to help ourselves. We're to help somebody else. This guy Avram Eliyahu helped somebody else. He helped the Rebbe Rashab. He returned his swarm. He figured out how to get them back to him. For that, he gets paid back. For helping Hashem do what he needs to have done, he pays us back and he gives us something. So he gives us more than we thought we were supposed to get. So everything that we lost, everything that went wrong and so forth, Hashem will pay us back. What we have to do, but the main thing is doing. We have to do for other people. We have to be kind to other people. We have to help lift up other people's spirits. We have to help them see clearly what the truth is and how they can get themselves out from underneath all the stupidity of the world and so forth, and the shtus of the world and everything else and so forth. And when we do that and we put our own effort into it, I'm not going to give it to you for free, as he said at the end. You're going to have to work a little bit yourself and figure out how to do it, and everybody in their own way. And then God pays back to us. And I think that's something you could remember every single day. And my wife has a much more exciting story, and I hope you stand tuned. And I'm going to turn over the microphone to her now.
Just a minute. Okay. Welcome, everybody. Does anybody want to say anything before I begin? If so, please unmute yourself. Okay, I'm going to begin. So I'm going to take something from Parsha. Last week's Parsha, right? Kisetse. Yeah? Well, I think we're on Kisavo already. Yes, we're on Kisavo already, right? Yes, we're on Kisavo. So last week's Parsha was Kisetse. And the same pasuk, there's the opening. First, I'm going to start with the four things I always start with. Number one, we're in an extraordinary time. And I say that because the Lubavitch Rebbe told us we are in the unfolding of the true and complete redemption that the Jewish people have been waiting for millennia and praying for millennia. And we're in it. And the second thing is that our souls were handpicked to be in this time because we have a big job, each one of us. If we're here, it's because we have a critical role to play. Number 3, we have all the tools we need, which we have the Torah, which is our guidebook, and we have mitzvahs, which are our power tools to change ourselves and change the world. There is nothing that changes a Jew more than doing mitzvahs. The negative mitzvahs are even more transformative than the positive. They're all necessary and all critical, but the negative mitzvahs, which are much harder to assume than the positive ones, like keep Shabbos, which means a lot of restrictions. It is so transformative. It is not. It is. I experienced that in my own journey. That I got much more out of the keeping the don't do's, and then afterwards I read it in a Chassidus that it is indeed the when you take on the I shall not do, thou shalt not do, or whatever it is. It catapults you into a different realm. So anyway, the fourth thing is that when we by learning tonight, by learning about the redemption, we actively advance it. And okay, I think I should get some water, but 1 second. All right. I'm back to teaching during the day, and so it's a challenge on my voice. So that sentence at the beginning of Kiseitse, and when you go to war against your enemy and you capture a captive, it is one of the it's a striking sentence. It's a striking concept, and but the Chassidus behind it is even more striking. The point is that where did it go? Oh, here it is. Okay, good. When you are confronted with the difficulties of life, what happens? Do you just surrender? Do you just, what happens? So what you have to do is when you're surrounded by really, really terrible difficulties, big challenges, what you have to do is capture a captive. And what does that mean? You have to take that energy, the negative energy, and harness it and use it for something good, because it is there for a reason. It is there for you to learn something from it. So, okay. Yeah. There was a Chassid who was in the Soviet prison system for many years. And when he was there, there were all sorts of people there. There were horse thieves. There were all sorts of people. And he learned from everybody. And there was one horse thief, and he asked him, tell me, how did you get the best horses? When you got horses, how did you find the best possible horses? And the horse thief that said that sometimes they would get wild horses, and they would look and they would watch when there was a group of wild horses. They would stage a scene, and they would put a baby horse into the wild horses were going to come ford a stream, and they would put a baby horse in there that didn't know how to swim, that couldn't swim. And when the wild horses came into the water, if there was a horse, one of these wild horses, they would take the baby horse, and I don't know how they would do it, grab its mane in its teeth or what, and bring the baby horse to the other shore. They knew that this was going to be an excellent horse to get, because not only did it have wild energy, but it had potential for good. And when they would train that wild horse, they would get a fortune when they sold that wild horse, because that horse truly was the best of the horses. So this was a wild horse, but when you harness its energy, you can make something very, very good about it. So when you're dealing with something that is really difficult, it's just like it's getting you down, it's depressing you, it's like this problem, and you can't take it anymore, and it's just terrible. My first piece of advice in a situation like that, before you even try capturing your captive, the first thing, my top piece of advice, there's nothing more powerful than at that moment, being at that time, at the difficult time that you're going through, you need to be your own best friend. If things are assailing you, people are not being nice to you, new difficulties are popping up every day, then if you're not taking care of yourself, if you yourself are violating your standards for yourself, for example, if you're not giving let's say you're a person who needs a certain amount of sleep and you keep robbing yourself of sleep every night because you stay up way too late, you have to get up earlier, then you are not going to be able to take the slings and arrows that life and other people give you. You're not going to be able to do it. But if you are your own best friend and you do that which you know you need from yourself, something only you can do for yourself, Hashem can't do it for you. Only you can put yourself into bed at a certain hour. Only you can do whatever it is that is your thing, that your way, that you're not always so nice to yourself. If you are your best friend, you are going to be able to take the slings and arrows of life in a totally different manner. It's going to be much, much easier. The second thing to know is the situation won't last forever. The Rebbe said in a sikha that I was learning today that we're extremely close to Geula, and we think our troubles are it's gonna go on till as far as the horizon. It's just gonna keep going and going and going, and it's not true. It's plainly not true. I think it was David HaMelech. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think it was David HaMelech who he wanted a ring made with something that would always be true. And so, what did he have them engrave on the ring? He had them engrave on the ring. This too will pass. This too will pass. No matter, we think it's going to go on forever. No, this too will pass. So, so the next point, the final point is that we have to turn our challenger into our own best friend. So, so how do we do that? We have to turn our challenger into our own best friend. So, for example, let's say we have to learn something from the difficulty. We have to learn something. We have to capture a gem from the difficulty. So, let's say, for example, let's say you have, how should I put it? Let's say you're dealing with somebody who won't deal with you. They just won't deal with you. They won't talk to you. They won't deal with you. They don't take your calls. And you need this person, you want this person, and they're stonewalling you. What do? You have to take a gem from that. And what is the gem that you can take from such a thing? This person apparently knows how to say no. They know how to stonewall somebody. So what you have to do is you have to learn that magnificent trait and take it for your own advantage. Oh, that's how to ignore somebody. That's how to ignore something. And you have to, when the Yetzer Hara gives you negative thoughts, you have to stonewall them. You have to say, you do not let them in. No, I'm sorry. I'm busy doing good right now. Sorry, not letting you in. Sorry, not answering that text, Yetzer Hara. Sorry, not answering that phone call. Just not doing it. You have to capture their captives. And so I'm going to tell you a story it's a magnificent story. It's a story I just heard from Rabbi Zalman Tachtel at the University of, God help me, I think it's University of Kentucky. And he's a Chabad rabbi. And he tells a story about someone named Powell Bromson. Powell Bromson, first of all, I'll tell you, I'll give you some background. I used to when I was single, I was the editor-in-chief of a Jewish magazine for women. It's called the Jewish Women's Journal. It was published in New York, and it was distributed internationally. It was a fun job. And one story that I myself did was an incredible story. And because this was in the 1990s, and this was happening in the 1990s. In the 1990s, in Poland particularly, there were a lot of old Gentiles who were already, they had been, younger adults during the Second World War. And now that they were in their 90s or so and they were dying off, they told their children something that was so horrifying to the children. The children couldn't fathom it. They told these children who were brought up as good Catholics or good atheists, and who were brought up as anti-Semites to hate the Jewish people. They were brought up to hate the Jewish people. These elderly Gentiles on their deathbed, one after another, were making confessions to these children. You are not my child from birth. You were given to me during the war by a Jew to take care of, and then the Jew said they would come back for you, but the Jew was killed. Your parents were killed. You are actually Jewish. And I'm dying now, and I feel it's the right thing to tell you. And these people were having nervous breakdowns. These young people who were brought up to be anti-Semitic, they were brought up to believe all these terrible things about Jews, were finding out that, oh my gosh, I'm Jewish. And anyway, I'm going to tell you the story about one such person and how he found out and what his story was. His name was Powell Bromson, and he was raised. His story was a little bit different. He was raised in an observant Catholic family, and he was raised in an observant Catholic family in Poland. And when he was a teenager, he dropped Catholicism, and he became a skinhead. He became a neo-Nazi skinhead, and he joined a bunch of, since he was brought up with all this anti-Semitism, and he believed all that anti-Semitism. He believed the garbage that has been spread in the world for centuries, for millennia. So he believed it because it says in the Torah, as everybody knows, that they're going to hate you, and they're going to hate you for no reason. They're going to hate you. It's a, whatever. It's a plan of Hashem. And so he joined this group of skinheads, and they would go to all sorts of things. They would go to soccer games, and they would shout anti-Semitic stuff. They would shout anti-Semitic stuff all the time, and he became the head of this group of skinheads because he believed this is all true. He believed that Jews were horrible people, and so he became the leader. And he married, after a few years, he married another skinhead. He married and whatever they had a couple of children. 4 years into their marriage, the woman, skinhead, anti-Semite, there was some anomaly about her family, and she wanted to look it up. And so, there's all sorts of information online. So she looked up her family online, and lo and behold, she found her maternal grandparents. She found their names listed in the Registrar of Warsaw Jews, her maternal grandparents. And she knew enough about Judaism to know, that means my mother's Jewish. That means I'm Jewish. That means my children are Jewish. Oh my gosh. That night, she told Powell Bromson, her husband, and he did not know what to do with this information. He did not know what to do with it at all. He said, oh my gosh. He said, I have to think about this. Give me a few days to think about this. And he was going nuts because he believed such horrible things about Jews. And now he found out that his wife and children are Jewish. So he decides, you know what? Maybe my wife made a mistake. And he used the same links that she passed on to him, and he looked it up. He looked up this Registrar of Warsaw Jews, and he sees she's absolutely right. She's Jewish. That means our children are Jewish. But then he finds something that she didn't see. Scrolling down, he found that his grandparents were also Jews in the Warsaw Ghetto. And he said, oh my gosh, my wife is Jewish, my children are Jewish, and I am Jewish. And he was beside himself. He went to his wife and they sat down, and his wife said, this same passion, we thought we were right. The same passion we used to hate Jews, we have to use now to find out what in the world is this thing? What is it to be a Jew? What is it? And they started exploring, and they explored more and more and more. And of course, when a Jew starts exploring, there's nothing in the world that compares to Torah. There's nothing at all like it. Everything else pales. I don't, I went to an Ivy League. I went to Williams College, and the year I was accepted. It was harder to get into than Harvard, and I was taught by Nobel laureates, and it was all a joke compared to the simplest class I took in Judaism. A joke, literally a joke. And so anyway, they started exploring their heritage, and their parents found out about it, and their parents actually knew that they were Jewish and hid it from their children. And they said, what are you doing? You're undoing everything we did. It's dangerous. Stop it. Don't do this. Drop it. But they wouldn't drop. And eventually, Powell took on the name Pinchas, and he started growing a beard. He started going to shul. They started observing Shabbos, and he started going to the same soccer games that he used to go to. And when his former friends, I don't know if they were former or what, when they were shouting anti-Semitic slurs, he would shout back, Am Yisrael Chai. And the only thing that was extremely painful in his life is that he had a twin brother, and the twin brother was still an anti-Semite, even though the twin brother now knew that he himself is Jewish. The twin brother did not give up. The twin brother was an anti-Semite, and was appalled at what his brother was doing. So it was deeply painful to Powell, now Pinchas, about his twin brother, but there was nothing he can do about it. So one Friday night, the twin brother needed to reach Powell, Pinchas. He needed to reach him because it was some kind of an emergency. And he called and called and called and called and called. And his brother didn't pick up the phone. And then he remembered, wait a minute, my brother's an observant Jew now. I forgot, he doesn't pick up the phone. Where's he going to be? Oh, he's going to be in the synagogue. And so he picks himself up, the skinhead brother, and he goes to the synagogue. Big, beautiful synagogue. He's sitting out there thinking, am I really going to go into this place? I need my brother. I'm going to go in. I need my brother. He opens the door. It's in a majestic place. And he sees there are very, very few people there, like a handful of people there. And the rabbi, when he opens the door, the rabbi turns around. And when the rabbi sees him, the rabbi gives him a huge smile, a huge warm smile. And he said, whoa, what a miracle. What a miracle. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the twin brother's thinking, what is he talking about? And the rabbi comes over and he says, we need you. Thank you. What a miracle that you showed up. You see, we have only 9 men here, and we can't do services because we don't have a minyan. Will you take a couple of minutes and be our 10th man? And he looks at him with like a warm face and a Jew to Jew face. And everybody's standing there because they all know who this guy is. Everybody knows who he is. And they're holding their breath, and the brother is davening in his head. Go for it. And the twin brother says, okay. And the twin brother stays. He's the 10th in the minyan. And eventually the twin brother comes back to his roots. So that same energy they used because they thought they were right. They were fed a lot of garbage when they were growing up, and they believed the garbage. When they found out the truth, they captured that energy and they used it for good from then on. So too, when we have negativity in our life, we have to think, there's a gold nugget here somewhere. There's a gem here somewhere. There's a gem buried in all this garbage. Let me find the gem. What is the gem? and let me run with it. Because Hashem did it to you for a reason. There's a gem there that you can take and run with. So I'm going to leave us all with a blessing that we find the gem in the garbage and we run with it and we capture our captive. And I'm going to, since school has begun again, I'm going to turn off the recording and ask if there are any questions.